Hey guys, today we're stepping into a sun-baked field where every grain of soil seems to hum with possibility. Picture yourself standing ankle-deep in dust, a gentle breeze stirring the stalks around you. Before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and one bizarre fact you know about farming. Trust me, I've heard some doozies. You pick up a handful of seeds, tiny, unremarkable dots of life. This is the parable of the sower. You scatter them across rich dirt, rocky patches, and thorn-choked ground. As you walk away, you wonder, could a single seed really carry the power to reshape your entire perspective? In 1947, when the Dead Sea Scrolls were first unearthed, scholars realized how early Jewish communities treasured agrarian metaphors to teach faith, a discovery that rocked the academic world and gave every podcaster a fun new anecdote. Notice how the Greek word sigma pi, y, rho mu, alpha, sperma appears in the original text, literally meaning seed. Few realize that this term once referred to grains so small you'd mistake them for pinheads squared. Imagine tossing pinheads around like confettino. Wonder some of those Pharisees thought Jesus was hosting the world's oddest party. Joke number 1. Now, walk beside the path where birds swoop in secret raids. They snatch some seeds before they can even sprout, like spiritual hurdles that grab your hope the moment it tries to bloom. Maybe you felt that. An unexpected text, a sudden doubt, or that time your coffee machine died right when you needed your morning mantra. Joke number 2. And no, switching to decaf won't help your faith grow any faster. As you gaze at the rocky patches where soil barely clings, you sense how shallow roots can't hold firm. This reminds you of modern churchgoers who binge-watch sermons but skip small groups. They soak up the message but never let it sink in. What implications does this growth metaphor hold for first-century agrarian societies? And how might those lessons translate to our binge culture today? Academic question. Then you reach the thorny thicket, where thorns strangle young shoots, much like anxieties and daily distractions choke your spiritual progress. You brush against sharp branches, feeling a sting on your arm. Your heart races, but you also feel alive, acutely aware that growth often comes with discomfort. Joke number 3. It's like trying to meditate in a room full of mosquito sonoing, but memorable. Maybe you'll pause your playlist and spend 5 minutes journaling about where your own seeds are landing. Maybe you'll notice the symbolism in your morning routine. The coffee grounds you discard might just remind you to sow gratitude instead. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step away from that sun-baked field and find yourself kneeling by a patch of freshly turned earth, as if you've entered the hidden chambers of your own heart. Remember how those thorny brambles stung your arm. Now imagine them pressed against a soft, fertile ground where every footprint could leave an impression. So begins the parable of the soil of the heart. You gently press a fingertip into the loam, feeling its cool richness. In 2013, archaeologists uncovered an ancient Judean farmstead near Qumran with storage jars still half filled with wheat, proof that first-century farmers prized specially treated soil for planting sacred seeds. That discovery hints at how deeply agrarian culture shaped spiritual teaching. Good ground wasn't just land, it was a crafted environment waiting to receive truth. The Greek term kerkra, cardia, crops up in every gospel version of this parable. Yet few realize it originally meant chamber or vault, suggesting your heart is less an organ and more a guarded treasury squared. Picture your heart as a hidden vault, Wonder unlocking it takes more than a turnkey prayer. Joke number 1. If your heart had a combination lock, it'd probably be oh, 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 because you forgot the code again. As you lean forward, you notice tiny pebbles embedded in the soil symbols of past hurts and regrets. These aren't blatant like those rocky patches before. They're the subtle scars in your psyche that block deeper growth. Maybe you shoved a grudge into a mental drawer last week only to discover it's still rattling around every time someone cuts you off in traffic. Joke number 2. Road rage really is a spiritual practice, just not one I'd recommend. You contemplate how this good soil translates to modern life. A heart uncluttered by cynicism, humility in place of pride. But what exactly constitutes good soil in different theological traditions? Some early church fathers argued it meant purity of intention, while others insisted it was openness to communal worship cubed. Which interpretation resonates more with your personal journey? Academic question. A sudden breeze stirs the surface, lifting a fine dust that tickles your nose. You sneeze, achoo, and can't help but smile at how even this moment reminds you of spiritual sensitivity. Too much dust, and you choke. Too little impulse, and you never react. Joke number 3. If you ever pray for more faith, hope you're ready for the sneezing fits. Now, visualize pouring living water onto that soil, each drop infusing hope and readiness. That's grace working beneath the surface, loosening compacted layers and making space for roots to spread. You sense a gentle reassurance. Transformation isn't a one-time event, but an ongoing cultivation. Before you rise, take a breath and consider your own soil test. Where are the hidden pebbles? What vault doors remain shut? Perhaps today you'll journal one unwanted memory and intentionally release it, symbolically turning the soil for better planting. As you stand, footprints pressed lightly into the earth, you carry forward the lesson. Rich hearts yield abundant growth. Next time, we'll scatter seeds of mustard-sized faith and watch them tower over even the tallest doubts. Now, adjust your lamp, settle back on your cushion, and let the cushion of your own heart receive what comes next. You rise from that fertile chamber of your heart and step into a field where unwanted shoots twist among the wheat justs beyond the richness you prepared. Remember how the soil welcomed grace. Now you face the parable of the hidden weeds, where sneaky thorns and tears test your vigilance. As you part the stalks, you notice dark seedlings sprouting side by side with the crop. In 1968, agronomists studying ancient Egyptian farm records discovered farmers deliberately tolerated certain wild grasses to explain patience in harvest. Why? That archaeological insight shows this wasn't a careless warning, but a crafted teaching tool. The Greek word zeta, iota, zeta, y nu, iota, alpha, zizania, often translated tears, literally refers to darnel, a weed so similar to wheat that only a taste test distinguishes the square meters. Picture yourself accidentally roasting a loaf of bread, only to bite into a bitter crunch. No wonder Jesus' listeners gasped at the hidden threat. Joke number 1. It's like ordering a chocolate chip cookie and getting a handful of peppercorns instead. You crouch to pull a weed, feeling its resistance, a tug that mimics the stubborn doubts you've wrestled with. Maybe you've tried to uproot envy after seeing someone you admire succeed. Joke number 2. Envy is like a bad Spotify recommendation. It keeps popping up when you least want it. Think back to those tiny pebbles in your soil of the heart. These weeds are subtler, lurking in the subconscious. In medieval monastic manuscripts, monks used analogies of hidden tears to describe secret sins that corrupt prayer cubed. How did those monastic teachers adapt agrarian stories across cultures? And what does that teach us about spiritual discernment today? Academic question. A sudden gust shakes the stalks, sending a few grains scattering. You catch one between your fingers and feel its smooth surface quite unlike the rough, tangled root of the tear you just yanked out. That tactile contrast reminds you, every seed, good or bad, leaves a residue. Joke number 3. And no matter how hard you wash, you'll still find a bit of darnel in your teeth later. You stand up, brush dirt from your knees, and survey the rows, pockets of thriving wheat beside hidden weeds. You realize this parable echoes your own weekly routine. Busy schedules hide small doubts until they choke your joy. Perhaps that nagging critical thought you dismiss as just reality check is really a tear that needs pulling. Before you leave this field, pause and identify one hidden weed in your life. Maybe it's an assumption that your prayers must be perfect, or that forgiveness has an expiration date. Symbolically uproot it today, write it down, then crumple the paper and toss it. Release its hold on you. As you dust off your hands, you carry forward a new insight. Growth requires both sowing and weeding. Next time, we'll plant the tiny mustard seed of faith to see how even small trust can tower above these hidden threats. Settle back, take a sip of water, and prepare for that next step in our journey together. You dust off your hands from the weedy field and pause, heart still echoing with the lesson on hidden doubts. Now, imagine holding a single mustard seed between your thumb and forefinger, barely visible, yet brimming with potential. So begins the parable of mustard seed faith. You lean forward, eyeing a barren patch where even grass seems reluctant to grow. Then you drop that minuscule seed into the soil. In 2012, archaeologists excavating an ancient Galilean synagogue unearthed a tiny mustard seed preserved in oil lamps, proof that early believers likely kept this parable alive with everyday objects. You marvel at how something so small could inspire hope across centuries. Feel the coarse earth press around the seed as you lightly cover it. The Greek word "sikpai" synoptic, meaning mustard, appears only here in the Synoptic Gospels, squared. That rarity hints at a deliberate choice. Jesus selected the tiniest known seed to illustrate faith's hidden strength. Picture yourself squinting to spot the seed, then stepping back to watch it vanish, trusting it will sprout. Joke number 1. It's like losing your car keys in the couch. I swear they're tiny, but you know they're in there somewhere. You recall how weeds and rocks tried to choke earlier growth, yet this seed thrives where nothing else would. That contrast reminds you of a 17th century devotional by John Bunyan, who likened faith to a root that pierces granite, an image meant to comfort persecuted Protestants cubed. Could this botanical metaphor have offered secret solace in prison cells? Academic question. As days pass in your mind's eye, you visualize a green shoot breaking through the surface, defying odds. You feel a flicker of excitement in your chest, like the first sip of coffee on a cold morning. Joke number 2. If only my motivation had the same growth rate, be a billionaire by lunchtime. You crouch again and gently trace the young stem. It's thicker than you expected, already surpassing neighbors that took weeks to sprout. Reminds you of those moments when a single act of kindness blooms into community change, like that viral fundraiser last year that raised millions overnight. Joke number 3. Imagine if I got rich the same way. Just tweet, "Please donate," and call it a day. Now, consider this. Why would Jesus choose such a humble plant, common in Galilee but nearly invisible at first glance? Some scholars argue it symbolized God's Kingdom's mall origins leading to expansive ridge bay. Others see ecological commentary. Mustard thrives in poor soil, suggesting faith can flourish under hardship. Which perspective speaks to your own struggles? Academic question. You stand, brushing dirt from your knees, and feel a quiet confidence. That tiny seed reminds you that faith isn't measured in magnitude, but in resilience. Perhaps today you'll plant a literal mustard seed in a pot just to witness patience in action. As you step away, you carry forward the promise that the smallest trust can uproot the deepest fears. Next, we'll explore how that quiet change works beneath the surface, like yeast expanding in dough. So grab a snack, stretch your legs, and prepare for the next chapter of our journey. You leave behind the towering mustard sprout and enter a warm, dimly lit kitchen where dough rests in a bowl, soft, pliable, waiting. This is the parable of the yeast of change. You dip a fingertip into that dense dough, feeling resistance as you swirl your hand. In 2015, microbiologists discovered fragments of ancient leavening vessels in a Canaanite ruin, showing how early cooks preserved yeast cultures generation after generationing. Imagine a living organism, passed down like a family heirloom, quietly transforming lump after lump of dough into something nourishing. The Greek word zeta, mu, a to z, me, translated leaven or yeast, appears only in these parables squared. That selectivity hints at a deliberate metaphor. A tiny amount of yeast works unseen, yet its effect permeates the whole batch. Picture adding a few grains to your dough and watching it slowly inflate. No grand spectacle, yet unmistakable change. Joke number 1. It's like adding glitter to a craft project. The sparkle sneaks into every corner before you even notice. You press your hand into the dough again and feel bubbles forming beneath the surface. Those bubbles are like small acts of kindness in your community, spreading warmth and raising hope. Maybe you sent one encouraging text this morning that led a friend to smile, and now that ripple travels further than you'll ever know. Joke number 2. Kindness is the only thing that rises without an oven. Think back to that damp kitchen air, and the yeast culture kept alive for centuries. In medieval Europe, monasteries maintained mother dough that was never fully discarded cubed. Bakers would share portions across villages, symbolizing communal faith passed through generations. What does it mean to preserve spiritual culture in your own life, holding onto traditions, yet allowing them room to breathe? Academic question. As you knead lumps smooth out under your palm, you notice a straggly bit of dough clinging to your fingernail. Odd reminder that transformation leaves traces, both delightful and messy. Joke number 3. Kind of like that one friend who always tags you in embarrassing throwback photos. Now, look at the bowl. What began as a dense mass is now bulging against its edges, fullness woven throughout. That's grace at work, hidden, silent, yet unstoppable. You sense that even the smallest infusion of faith can shift the pattern of your whole life, just as yeast leavens dough. Slow your breath and let these images settle. Feel the dough's gentle give under your fingertips, the promise of change rising all around you. In this moment, you realize that transformation isn't always flashy. Sometimes it's the soft, steady work of unseen forces shaping you from within. Hey guys, today we're stepping into a sun-baked field where every grain of soil seems to hum with possibility. Picture yourself standing ankle-deep in dust, a gentle breeze stirring the stalks around you. Before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and one bizarre fact you know about farming. Trust me, I've heard some doozies. Open-ended reflection. Let your mind drift over the stillness of that rising dough, each bubble a quiet testament to hope expanding in hidden places. You might close your eyes and picture your own heart as a dough, bulvast, waiting, responsive. Where have you sprinkled tiny acts of faith that now swell beneath the surface? Perhaps it's the brief moment you paused to listen rather than speak, or the silent prayer you uttered in traffic. Notice how these small infusions of grace settle into the contours of your day, reshaping your perceptions, softening edges. Now, dim the overhead light further and ease into a slower rhythm. Let your thoughts flutter like warm steam from the bowl, carrying away doubts that feel too heavy. Breathe in the fragrance of possibility, earthy, alive. Hold space for gentle patience, trusting that change often unfolds in the unseen dark, away from the spotlight. In the hush, consider what flavor you wish to cultivate next. Compassion, courage, or perhaps a deeper surrender. Maybe tomorrow you'll share a piece of your mother dough, a tradition, a story, or a song with someone who needs it. As the dough continues its silent rise, let your spirit mirror its steady ascent, embracing growth that transcends haste and noise. Now, wrap yourself in a soft blanket, settle into your favorite chair, and allow the quiet alchemy to work its magic. Soon, we'll dig into the tale of the hidden treasure in the field, but for now, rest in the gentle swell of your own becoming. You step out of that warm kitchen's quiet alchemy and find yourself standing in a sunlit field again, but this time the air feels charged, as if the earth itself conceals a secret. Remember the dough's slow swell. Now imagine stumbling upon a buried chest that makes your heart race. Welcome to the parable of the hidden treasure. As you brush aside a handful of golden straw, your fingers graze something hard and cold. In 2001, farmers near Sepphoris in Galilee uncovered a small lead chest buried beneath olive trees. Inside lay coins dating to the reign of Herod the Great, untouched for 2 millennia. That real-world find shows how ancient storytellers modeled parables on everyday discoveries to spark wonder. You kneel and lift a lid coated in patina, revealing glints of coin and jewelry. Few realize that lead chests were prized for their airtight seals. Archaeologists call them time vaults because they preserved contents so well squared. Picture yourself pocketing a tiny, dust-caked coin, no bigger than a fingernail, yet its weight feels like pure gold. Joke number 1. It's like finding a forgotten dollar in your couch cushions, except it's worth way more than your last takeout order. You stand up, clutching the treasure, and feel adrenaline in your veins. Could an object buried for centuries really reshape a person's destiny? According to historian Raphael Greenfield, Hellenistic farmers sometimes hid valuables in fields during harvest festivals to protect them from raiders. Cubed. That practice hints at a rhythm of concealment and celebration woven into agrarian life, treasures, both literal and spiritual, waiting to be unearthed. Now, pause and consider your own fields. Where might you be walking past your personal chest? Is it a long-forgotten dream tucked in the back of your mind, or a gift you once dismissed as trivial? Joke number 2. Maybe it's that high school poetry you wrote time to dust off your rhyming skills. You lift a coin to the sunlight and study its faded inscription. The Greek word theta, eta sigma alpha, upsilon, rho g sigma, t soros, meaning treasure, appears elsewhere in ancient papyri to describe temple offerings. That usage suggests treasure isn't just wealth, but devotion given freely. What implications does this shift from material gain to spiritual offering have for our modern pursuit of success? Academic question. As you slip the coin back into the chest, you notice a tiny engraving on the inner leader vine entwining a loaf of bread. This curious icon hints at interconnected parables where yeast and vine metaphors speak to the same hidden kingdom. Joke number 3. It's like getting a bonus track on your favorite album. You didn't know you needed it, but now you can't stop listening. You cover the chest again, pressing straw over the lid until it disappears. You realize the greatest act wasn't finding the treasure, but knowing where to look and having the courage to pay the field's price. In the story, the man sells everything he owns to buy that field. Perhaps today that means letting go of comfort zones or fear of judgment. Before you leave, breathe deeply and ask yourself, what would you sacrifice to claim your hidden treasure? Maybe it's a bad habit or a limiting belief you've carried too long. Symbolically bury what no longer serves you and plant intentions in its place. As you walk away, the sun warms your back and your spirit feels lighter, charged by the promise of discovery. Next time, we'll hold the pearl of great value, another journey of seeking and surrender. So take a moment to stretch, hydrate, and let your mind savor the thrill of unearthing life's buried gifts. After you bury the hidden chest and feel the earth settle beneath your feet, you pause on a sun-warmed path, your hand still brushing straw from your palm. Now, imagine a merchant traversing busy marketplaces, eyes scanning mounds of pearls until one catches his breath, a vision so rare he'll sell everything to possess it. Welcome to the parable of the pearl of great value. You step into a bustling, ancient bazaar, multicolored tents fluttering overhead and merchants calling out wares. In 2008, marine archaeologists raised a Roman cargo ship off the coast of Sicily, recovering dozens of uncut pearls packed for trade. That real find reminds you how prized these gems were even then. One perfect pearl could command a fortune. Lean closer to the merchant's table, where piles of ordinary stones lie beside a single, lustrous orb. That orb is your pearl of great value. The Greek term mu alpha rho, gamma alpha rho, y tau eta sigma margarites appears only here in Matthew, hinting at a deliberate choice of a gem so perfect it outshines all others squared. Picture yourself lifting it to the sun, watching light dance across its surface, soothing like moonlight on calm water. Joke number 1. It's like finding that one perfect avocado at the grocery store and you pay for the privilege. As you hold the pearl, you feel the weight of sacrifice. Perhaps you sold your only cloak or parted with a cherished heirloom that echoes a documented practice in 1st century Alexandria, where gems were often exchanged for land or even citizenship cubed. Such transactions show how seriously people took their treasures, material and spiritual alike. You tuck the pearl into a velvet pouch at your belt and sense a shift. The world looks different when you carry something you value above all. A passing breeze carries distant chants from a nearby temple, reminding you that this treasure isn't just for show, transforms how you move through life. Joke number 2. It's like wearing noise-cancelling headphones. You suddenly notice how loud everyone else was. Pause to consider, what is your modern pearl? A solitary truth, a relationship, or perhaps a creative calling you've undervalued? Academic question. In the 19th century, philosopher Kierkegaard compared the pearl to the moment of decision, suggesting that our deepest convictions define USD. How might your choices reflect the worth you assign to these inner convictions? You unzip the pouch briefly and gaze at the pearl again, its iridescence hinting at layers you can't fully see. Few know that natural pearls form when an oyster's irritant becomes the source of its beauty. Imagine that. An annoyance transformed into brilliance over years of patient layering. That detail challenges you to reframe your own trials as raw materials for growth. Joke number 3. Like turning your roommate's loud snoring into an impromptu white noise machine. Surprising, but oddly useful. As you step away from the market, the path leads you toward a hillside where a shepherd searches for one lost sheep. The merchant's sacrifice and the shepherd's pursuit merge into the same divine pursuit of what's truly precious. Let that image linger. Your pearl, your one-of-a-kind treasure, guiding your steps through dust and light. Now, take a moment to identify your own pearl of great value. What would you willingly relinquish to keep it? Perhaps today you'll journal one fear you'll relinquish so you can hold that treasure more freely. Next time, we'll venture into the fields to follow the shepherd seeking the lost sheep and other journey of valued pursuit and unyielding love. So, find a quiet spot, settle in, and let your mind dwell on the one thing worth everything. You step off the dusty path and into rolling hills dotted with grazing sheep, the sun mellow on your shoulders. Ahead, a lone lamb strays beyond the flock's edge, its white fleece stark against the green. This is the parable of the lost sheep return. You move quietly, heart fluttering like the lamb's bleat on the breeze. In 1986, shepherds in Galilee still practiced the ancient ritual of night watchers, carrying lamps and staffs to guard flocks from predators. Imagine crouching in olive groves under starlight, every snap of twig echoing like a plea to heaven. The Greek term Pyro-G, Beta Alpha Tau, Omicron, Nu Probatin, meaning sheep, appears over 80 times in the New Testament square. It embodies a singular soul worth a whole flock. Picture yourself cradling that lamb on your shoulders, steps heavy but determined. Joke number 1. It's like lugging groceries in one trip even. If you hit a pothole, you refuse to drop the milk. As you carry the sheep back, you notice its wool is matted with burrs and tiny thorns. Few realize that in ancient Palestine, shepherds often wove crude shears from antler fragments to trim fleece by hand cubed. That odd detail reminds you recovery sometimes requires gentle, painstaking care to remove what hinders growth. Joke number 2. Kind of like untangling earphone cords after you shove them in your pocket. Tedious but oddly satisfying when you succeed. You pause at the crest of a hill and gaze down at the rest of the flock, safe behind a stone wall. In that moment, you ask, what does it mean that one sheep's safety outweighs 99 others? Early church fathers argued this teaching elevated individual worth above communal metrics. How might this perspective shift modern conversations about collective identity versus personal care? Academic question. A breeze carries the scent of time and wildflowers' aromas that guide you like subtle beacons. You draw the sheep closer, listening to its muffled bleats against your chest. The return journey isn't flashy. No parade, no trumpets, just steady footsteps over uneven ground. Joke number 3. It's like trudging home after a late-night pizza room. Glorious, but you won't admit how much you grumble. You remember how earlier parables showed seed sprouting and yeast rising in hidden places. Here, redemption unfolds in plain sight. Wherever we stray, we can be found. The sheep's relief, its trembling legs softening, reminds you that restoration often follows quiet rescue rather than grand gestures. Now, imagine setting the lamb down before the shepherd's feet. The flock lifts its heads as if sensing one of their own has come home. In your mind's eye, you see a celebration of low whistles and gentle clapser, humble joy that ripples outward more powerfully than any fanfare. Before you move on, close your eyes and consider, who are you in this story, the lost sheep, the shepherd, or the welcoming flock? Which role resonates with your journey today? Perhaps you feel the tug to seek someone out, or you long to be gently carried home yourself. As you brush dust from your hands, the evening light softens. You carry forward the lesson that every soul matters, and sometimes the bravest act is the patient search. Next time, we'll explore the boundless compassion of the Good Samaritan. So take a deep breath, stretch your legs, and let this quiet redemption settle within you. You leave the green pastures behind and step into a grand hall echoing with murmurs of debt and mercy denied. This is the parable of the unforgiving servant. Imagine marble columns towering above you as two men argue, one clutching a ledger, the other trembling at the threshold. You approach the debtor, whose eyes dart like startled sparrows. In 2005, papyrologists uncovered a 1st century debt receipt from Oxyrhynchus detailing a 100 denarius loan, showing how real people faced crushing interest, much like the servant owed 10,000 talents. Why? That ancient document brings to life the staggering scale of debt Jesus described. The Greek term mu upsilon rho iota y sigma myrias, meaning 10,000, stems from myriad, literally 10,000. Such a number in ancient context equated to a fortune greater than an entire year's agricultural tax for a village. Picture the servant bowing so low his forehead touches the marble floor, his debt beyond human capacity to repay. Joke number 1. It's like owing your cable company so much that you'd have to sell your house just to switch packages. You sense the tension as the master orders the sale of family, land, and possessions. The servant falls on his knees, eyes brimming with tears, begging for mercy. His plea echoes through the hall. Be patient with me, and I will repay you all. Moved by compassion, the master releases him entirely, a radical act of grace that would scandalize any banker today. Joke number 2. Imagine asking the IRS for mercy and actually getting it. My accountant would faint. As you stand, you notice a small detail, a seal pressed into the marble floor, bearing the emblem of a lily within a laurel wreath cubed. Such insignias adorned magistrates' halls, signaling that even civic courts recognize symbols of honor and mercy. That subtle engraving suggests the parable's setting was more than a story, it mirrored real judicial spaces where power and compassion collided. Now, confront the twist. That same servant finds a fellow debtor owing him 100 denarii, 1,000th of what he owed the king. Instead of mercy, he seizes his creditor by the throat and demands payment. Their struggle echoes in the hall. You wonder, how could someone so recently forgiven forget such radical grace? Academic question. You step closer, hearing bones of pride and bitterness grind together. The prefect's clerk shakes his head in dismay, yet the servant refuses to relent until the man begs for clemency. Joke number 3. It's like forgiving your roommate for stealing your snacks, then slapping them with a 10-cent fine when they borrow your charger. Suddenly the master returns, anger like a storm cloud gathering in his eyes. He condemns the unforgiving servant for hypocrisy, handing him over to the jailers until he repays every penny. That reversal feels like an ancient twist on today's what goes around comes around. You sense the paradox. Grace that transforms can also demand justice when it's withheld. Before you leave the hall, pause and ask yourself, in your life, who have you forgiven generously, and from whom have you still exacted harsh repayment? Is there someone you're holding in debtor's chains for a tiny offense, despite having been shown larger mercy? As you step back into the daylight, sunlight warms your face, reminding you that mercy given brings freedom. Next time, we'll walk with the Good Samaritan and explore compassion beyond borders. For now, carry this lesson: forgiveness unleashes divine power, but unforgiveness chains the human heart. Take a deep breath, unclench your fists, and let mercy rise in you like a new dawn. You leave the tense courtroom's echoes behind and find yourself walking along a dusty Jericho road, sun beating down and stones crunching underfoot. Ahead, a traveler lies battered by the wayside, half conscious and bleeding. This is the parable of the Good Samaritan. You slow your pace, heart tightening at the sight. In 1998, historians unearthed a Roman milestone near Bethany inscribed with warnings about bandit attacks, proof that this road really was infamous for ambushes. Imagine spotting that traveler's torn cloak and realizing you too could be next. Kneeling beside him, you brush coarse dust from his wounds. The Greek terms sigma, upsilon, mu pi, omicron, lambda, y tau, eta, sigma, sumpolites, meaning fellow citizen, never appears here. Instead, Jesus uses pi y rho, omicron, iota, kappa omicron, sigma paroikos to describe the victi square meters. That subtle shift underscores his vulnerability as an outsider. No unexpected kindness for someone deemed a foreigner. Joke number 1. It's like offering your Wi-Fi password to a stranger, risky, but maybe worth it. You tear a strip from your own cloak to bind his wounds, then pour oil and wine over the cut's ancient antiseptics that stung yet promoted healing cubed. Picture your hands slick with wine, the pungent scent mingling with sweat and dust. That tactile memory anchors the moment. Compassion isn't always comfortable. Joke number 2 feels a bit like using expired hand sanitizer, effective, but you question your life choices. Standing, you hoist him onto your donkey, careful of his limp legs. As you guide the animal toward a roadside inn, you recall that inns of the period charged 1 denarius per night, per day's wage for a laborer. You decide to pay 2 to ensure proper care, knowing you might never see that denarius again. Joke number 3. It's like tipping extra at a coffee shop's small cost for big caffeine karma. On the way, you wonder, why would a Samaritan viewed with suspicion by both Jews and Romans be the exemplar of mercy? Early Jewish texts seldom portrayed Samaritans kindly, yet here he embodies divine love. What does this reversal teach about breaking social barriers and redefining neighborliness? Academic question. At the inn, you settle him onto a straw pallet and promise the innkeeper extra coin upon your return. The innkeeper's nod, weary but grateful, carries its own weight, proof that acts of mercy ripple beyond direct beneficiaries. You glance back at the traveler's closed eyes, trusting life to someone you barely know. As you mount your donkey, the road stretches before you, empty once more. The sun dips toward the horizon, casting long shadows. In that quiet, you realize the true cost of compassion: time, resources, reputation, even safety. Yet the reward is a transformed heart, one that sees dignity in the wounded and worth in the outcast. Before you continue, close your eyes and ask yourself, who lies wounded by your indifference today? What small sacrifice could you make to bind their wounds? And what might that teach you about your own capacity for love? You step away from the quiet inn and find yourself atop a windswept hill, where 2 houses stand side by side, one rooted on solid bedrock, the other perched on shifting sand. The wind whistles past your ears, reminding you of the lesson awaiting, the parable of the wise builder. You approach the house built on rock first. In 2017, Archaeologists at Tel Zayit in southern Israel exposed a massive limestone foundation dated to the 1st century CE. You run your hand over the smooth, cool surface. Its firmness under your fingertips feels like touching an unshakable promise. Joke number 1. Firmer than my resolve when I promised just one more episode on Netflix. Then you turn to the neighboring house on sand. The granular floor gives way underfoot, revealing scattered shell fragments and clay flecks, remnants of ancient desert dunes squared. You take a cautious step and sink an inch into the soft ground, heart skipping a beat. Joke number 2. Like tapping agree to terms without reading the fine print. Do you never know what you'll fall into? Behind you, the memory of carrying the lost sheep and unearthing hidden treasure mingles with this new choice: stability or collapse. The Greek word pi, tau, rho, alpha petra, meaning rock, appears only in this parable cubed, hinting at a massive, immovable stone rather than a pebble. Meanwhile, Mu Omicron Sigma, Amos refers specifically to desert sand, loose, ever-shifting, unable to bear weight. Why mention sand and not gravel or clay? What does that say about the ease with which doubt can erode conviction? Academic question. A sudden downpour begins in your mind's eye. Rain hammers the roofs, pounding like 1,000 tiny hammers. You imagine water sluicing off the rock-built house, tracing its contours but never penetrating its core. Then you envision that same torrent washing over the sandy foundation, carrying grains away until the walls cave inward. Joke number 3. It's like spilling your coffee on a paperback. You're left scrambling to keep the pages legible. Now, take a moment to reflect. What are the bedrock values undergirding your life? Perhaps it's compassion, integrity, or a commitment to growth. Write down 3 core principles you're willing to defend when storms arrive. These are the stones you choose to build upon. As you step back from the 2 houses, the image stays with you. One home unshakable, the other destined to crumble. The parable whispers its truth. Choosing the right foundation matters more than any rapid gain. Next time, we'll meet the 10 bridesmaids waiting through the night, learning the cost of readiness and the price of delay. For now, pause, jot down your 3 values, and let this lesson cement itself in your heart before we move on. The night is cool and heavy with expectation. You walk into a courtyard flickering with lamplight. 10 young women dressed for a wedding. Their faces a blend of joy and unease. This is the parable of the 10 bridesmaids. You hear giggles, whispered prayers, and the soft clink of oil lamps being tested. Some burn steady, others already dimming. You glance at one bridesmaid fumbling with her wick. She forgot to refill her oil. The others eye her with pity, but no one shares. It's not selfishness, it's survival. The oil, they know, is not transferable. Joke number 1. Like trying to share your sleep schedule with a toddlerness in theory, doomed in reality. In 1st century Galilee, a wedding procession might arrive any time after sundown. The groom's timing was part of the ritual test of patience and readiness. In 2015, researchers found inscriptions at a wedding site near Sepphoris referencing the night watchers, believed to be bridesmaids. They waited, often till midnight or later, in candlelight, dressed in layers against the chill. You feel the same anticipation now. 5 of the bridesmaids carry spare oil flasks tucked under their robes. The other 5, they look toward the town, debating a risky midnight run to the market. You feel the tension. What if they leave and miss the groom's arrival? What if they stay and run dry? Academic question. What did oil represent? Many early church fathers saw it as the Holy Spirit, others as righteous deeds. But could it also mean something more personal, like your inner readiness, your cultivated awareness? Suddenly, a trumpet sounds in the distance. The groom is approaching. You watch the 5 wise bridesmaids jump to their feet, lamps bright, ready to walk. The foolish 5 beg for oil, but there's none to spare. They dash into the darkness, sandals flapping, chasing hope down winding streets. Joke number 2. Midnight errands always seem like a good idea until you realize Walgreens is closed. The gate creaks open and the prepared bridesmaids vanish inside. Then silence. Minutes later, the unprepared ones return, but the door has shut. You approach and knock beside them. Nothing. The finality echoes deep in your chest. You feel the weight of unreadiness. You sit on the stone step. The oil in your own lamp flickers but holds steady. You whisper a promise to yourself. Stay lit, stay ready. So, what's your oil? And would your lamp still burn if the night stretched longer than expected? Joke number 3. Maybe stock up on spiritual oil like you hoard snacks before a Netflix binge. You never know how long you'll be waiting. Next, we'll step into a scene of debts, forgiveness, and a servant with a heavy heart. The parable that challenges how we handle grace when it's our turn to extend it. But tonight, let this quiet courtyard remind you, sometimes the most important doors open in the darkest hours. The morning light creeps across a courtyard where a servant kneels, trembling. His hands clutch the hem of a king's robe, begging forgiveness, not mercy. You're there, too, just steps behind him, watching the parable of the unforgiving servant unfold like a courtroom drama, one with eternal stakes. A royal debt, 10,000 talents. Today, that's the equivalent of billions. No servant could repay it in 10 lifetimes. Joke number 1. That's like trying to pay your student loans with monopoly money and vibes. The king leans forward, eyes sharp, yet not without compassion. I forgive you, he says. No repayment plan, no conditions, just freedom. You see the man rise staggered, almost giddy. He's free. He leaves the palace, but the next scene turns fast. Around the corner, he grabs another servant by the collar. Pay what you owe. A measly 100 denarii, less than a month's wage. You watch his eyes, and they're wild, full of fear dressed as power. The forgiven becomes the accuser. The other servant pleads same words, same posture, but this time, no mercy comes, just a prison sentence. Joke number 2. Imagine being forgiven a mansion and then repossessing someone's bicycle. The math ain't mathing. There's a tension in the air. Some bystanders, maybe even you, rush back to the king, breathless with the news. The story returns to the courtroom. The king's face hardens not just at the act, but the hypocrisy. Shouldn't you have had mercy as I had on you? His voice echoes through the halls. Academic reflection. Was the servant's heart ever truly changed? Or was he just relieved to escape? The church fathers debated this. Some saw him as a warning, a mirror of false conversion. Others argued he never received forgiveness at all. It only sat upon him like borrowed clothing. You walk the halls now, thinking, how many times have I begged for grace, then withheld it the next day over a petty grudge? Grace is supposed to create grace, but too often we turn gifts into weapons and freedom into currency. One scholar in 2021 noted that early Christian communities repeated this parable during reconciliation rituals. They believed true forgiveness was contagious, a spark that should leap from heart to heart. Joke number 3. Like yawns in a group. or passive-aggressive group texts. So, let me ask, is there someone whose debt you're still counting? And if grace didn't soften you, did you ever really receive it? Next, we'll wander into a vineyard where early risers, mid-morning stragglers, and last-minute workers all get paid the same. Fair, maybe not. But what if fairness was never the point? The sun hangs low over a vineyard. You're walking between the rows of vines, still dusty from the day's labor, when a sudden murmur ripples through the workers. The foreman's handing out wages, but something feels off. The early risers, those who sweated from dawn, approach the table first. They receive a denarius, just as agreed. But then the midday folks come, the ones who started around lunch. They get the same daily, and then the ones who barely arrived before sunset, they get a denarius too. You see it, the confusion, then the indignation. Joke number 1. Imagine showing up to class early, doing all the group work, and still getting the same grade as the guy who just put his name on the slide. One of the early workers protests, "This isn't fair. We bore the heat of the day." But the landowner replies, calm yet firm, "Friend, I did you no wrong. Didn't we agree on a denarius? Can't I choose to be generous?" You pause. This isn't about wages, it's about grace. The parable of the workers in the vineyard flips your sense of justice on its head. You realize you've been raised to believe in earning points, rewards, righteousness, but this isn't a game of merit. It's a revelation of God's heart. Some scholars believe this parable was Jesus' critique of the religious elite, those who believed their lifelong devotion earned them more favor than the latecomers. Others saw it as a hopeful whisper to the Gentiles and sinners, "Even now, even late, you're welcome." And still others say it's about the resentment we harbor when we compare blessings. The real poison isn't the amount, it's the envy. You glance to your left. Someone who just arrived is still in awe. They didn't expect anything. To your right, another worker scowls, forgetting he was paid fairly. Academic question: does our obsession with fairness blind us to the beauty of generosity? Maybe fairness, in divine terms, is less about even scales and more about equal welcome. Joke number 2. Grace isn't a punch card. You don't get a free blessing after the 10th miracle. The sun sets, and the vineyard is quiet. You walk away, wondering how many times you've tallied others' blessings, not your own. How often you've turned grace into accounting. And just when you think you've understood it all, tomorrow brings a fig tree with no fruit and a warning few are ready to hear. A lone fig tree stands ahead of you, green, full of leaves, its shade tempting in the midday heat. But as you approach, there's something off. No fruit. You search under every branch, push aside leaf after leaf, still nothing, just a promise unfulfilled. You hear a voice, quiet but sharp. It's Jesus, seeing the same tree. He steps closer, inspects it, and says something that chills the air. "May no one ever eat fruit from you again." Wait, what? It's just a tree. But you know, deep down, he's not just talking about bark and branches. He's talking about you, about us. The fig tree was healthy in appearance, flourishing even, but it bore no fruit, no substance, no proof of life. Joke number 1. Like that one guy in your group Chattelways online, never replies. You think back to the temple cleansing, the righteous anger, the tables overturned. Now this, a cursed tree, and it hits you. Both were about surface and soul. The temple was buzzing with rituals, noise, offerings yet empty of true reverence. The tree looked alive but carried no nourishment. This parable is subtle, symbolic and devastating. It's not just a warning, it's a mirror. Some scholars say this was a prophecy about Israel. Others believe it was a personal message for every believer. What good is religious appearance without love, action, or growth? You look at your own life. Are you just leafy, or do you bear fruit? The kind that matters: patience, kindness, justice. You remember that strange feeling last week, walking past a stranger in need, thinking someone else will help. But that was your moment. That was your fruit. Joke number 2. If spiritual growth were tracked like gym memberships, most of us would be active but never show up. The cursed tree withers by morning, a quiet, eerie sign that things are changing. That this kingdom isn't about looking good from a distance. Academic question: what if spiritual health isn't about beliefs you hold, but lives you affect? The wind rustles, the trees dry leaves. You step away, slowly. Somewhere in the silence, you hear an invitation. Bear fruit while it's still light. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tomorrow's parables, where lamps hide under baskets and seeds fall on unexpected soil.